Hello, everybody, and welcome. One moment. Hello. Tonight I will. Happy Halloween, everybody. Delayed. Um, if you're not watching a horror movie or taking your kid out trick or treating or trick or treating yourself, then perhaps you have some time to kill. Happy Halloween, and you can celebrate it with yours truly. I thought I would do some poetry readings from my very first book that I ever wrote, the Macabre masterpiece, Poems of Horror and Gore. For those that don't know, the Macabre masterpiece, Poems of Horror and Gore, is now a 5-time #1 most downloaded book for contemporary poetry on Amazon. It is also a 1-time #1 most downloaded book for poetry anthology and a 2-time #2 most downloaded book for American poetry. So it's got pretty good credentials. I'm quite proud of that. So I thought in the fitting tradition in celebrating this joyous occasion, and of course because it's Halloween, that I would read some poems from the book. But wait, I won't be just reading from this book. I will also be reading from the second book, the Macabre masterpiece, Repressed Carnage. It's not as beloved on Amazon, but don't let the reading fool you. It's just as chilling as book numero uno. So without further ado, I will begin reading I will be reading one poem from each chapter. There's 5 chapters. So I will be reading one poem per chapter. I will pick them at random. This is currently live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, all at the same time. Yeah, because I'm savvy like that. If anybody wants to chime in, join me, please feel free. All right. So the first poem from the Macabre masterpiece that I will be reading will be The Declaration of Decadence. We hold no truths here, and nothing is evident. No soul is treated equal. This is no sacrament. Those who are here rot. They are not endowed by their Creator. They are alienable, have no rights, and the devil is their savior. There is no life without death, liberty without tyranny, and the pursuit of happiness here is just irony. You need no consent here, because you're just a slave. Your body on earth, decaying in its grave. Let this stand as your only rights given. You don't deserve any, since you're no longer living. This goes beyond weighing equal document. Consider it to be your final event. When you lived, you went by independence. Here you believe in the declaration of decadence. Quite chilling. The next poem I will be reading from will be chapter 2. Oh, by the way, I should probably mention the chapters. Chapter 1 is called Hell. Chapter 2 is Blood. And for that one, I will be reading the poem The Screaming of Bloody Murder. Guests socialize in a ballroom, conversing in chatter. A door slams abruptly with vigorous force. They all soon rush to the room to see what's the matter, looking around, trying to find the source. They look down before them to find the unexpected. A body lays dead on the floor. No trace of anyone else or a weapon is detected, just a puddle and presence of gore. They talk amongst themselves, clearly shaken. Everything seems so calm. They wonder if another life will be taken, and who would want to inflict harm. Soon there's another startling noise. The killing has traveled further. Everyone begins to lose their poise upon the cries and screaming of bloody murder. So fun fact, when I originally wrote the poem, The Screaming of Bloody Murder, it was originally called Clue. And the ending was, it was Colonel Mustard in the parlor with a wrench. But I was like, that's kind of cheesy. So I decided to up it a little bit and make it a little more creepy. The next chapter I will be reading from will be called Chapter 3, which is Creatures. And Seeing as it's Halloween, I will read the poem called Zombies. Out of the graveyard they begin to rise, small, medium, large at every size. Pale like a parent's pasty complexion, they are dead and do not offer affection. Their walk is slow, yet they still bring fear. It takes forever for them to be near. If they do get you, they'll use cannibal tactics, because when it comes to body parts, they are addicts. Sometimes all it takes is one cough, and boom, an arm or leg falls off. It's something creepy indeed to dread, so watch out for the dawn of the dead. Little short poem, shorter than the rest, but just as good, I believe. Chapter 4. You think I'd remember my own chapters, but it's been a while. Chapter 4 is called Creepy, and ooh, this one's got a lot of good ones. I will be reading the poem The Legend of the Ship on Mystery Pier. If I can find it. There we go. Ah, The Legend of the Ship on Mystery Pier. Along the deck of a port town in the mist, where the population is few, but the people do exist, where the fog clouds the skies and the seas can't be seen, not a trace of blue in the air, just a smoke like green. A ship makes its way as it embarks on a mission, makes a pit stop at this city, but is probably not proficient. They get off the ship and head towards town, not a trace of a crowd or a single person around. That's because they're all in their houses looking out their windows, checking out these grungy guys with weird scruffy clothes. They scoundrel up some rum along the port and torch the rest. They head deeper into town. They head deeper into the city, looking to cause them death. But when brave men come out their homes to try and vanish, the other men are gone and seem to vanish. Left behind are burning barrels of rum with no trace of men anywhere. And so goes the legend of the ship on Mystery Pier. That one tells like a little bit more of a story than the other ones, whereas they're just straight creepy poems. And finally, the last poem I will be reading from the Macabre masterpiece is from the chapter Suspense, and it will be. Normally, I would read The Night Watchman, but it's Halloween, so it needs to be a little more creepy. So I will go with The Philosophy of Carnage. Whoop. There is but stillness inside every cerebral. Tiny waterfalls of blood vessels rushing, becoming lethal. Most overcome this trait, some are less fortunate. Their minds not fully developed, but dormant. In their unconscious minds, a memory chip is inserted to change things around till they're inverted. So now the mind is poisoned with a virus, one that calculates and stimulates with violence. Horror and terror take on whole meanings, turning nice people into bloodthirsty prototype beings. They know not of what they do, nor do they care. Overtaken by darkness, emotions no longer there. They seize opportunities without even thinking, corrupting the mind further and further into shrinking, until it's no longer active but taken hostage. The mind is a terrible thing to waste with the philosophy of carnage. I do hope you enjoyed the poetry reading from the first book, the Macabre masterpiece. 5-time #1 most downloaded book for contemporary poetry on Amazon. Do grab yourself a copy before 11:59 tonight, and perhaps the Macabre masterpiece could become a 6-time #1 most downloaded book for contemporary poetry. Shameless plug, totally. The next book I will be reading from, of course, is the sequel, The Macabre Masterpiece Repressed Carnage. You do not have to read the first book to read this one. It's just the same creepy style of horror poems. Same concept. We have 5 chapters. The only difference is I put 60 poems in this one. There was only 50 in the other one. So the first chapter is called The Crypt, and the poem that I will be reading is entitled Blood and Gold. Actually, no, wait, scratch that. I will be reading the poem Corpse Fortress. This is the poem Corpse Fortress. Viewer discretion is advised. Call it what you want, call it what you will. This is a place where the dead get their fill. It's not a place for the living to explore, packed with gore and a hell of a lot more. A cozy crypt known as the cadaver's playground. At times it's been known to where the dead get down. No, not dancing like Thriller in the streets. They engage in disturbing orgies in the streets. Sure, their parts aren't right, but the whole place stinks. They're dead and don't care what anyone thinks. Up against dusty coffins, cracked and beyond broken, some do it on the ground with their mouths wide open. They animate to get intimate every once in a while. Think of a brothel in a Gothic crypt style. The living who enter may end up paying the price. On the contrary, this is a necrophiliac's paradise, a place where those who experience rigor mortis they call home, a place called the corpse fortress. Like I said, viewer discretion advised. the second poem, the second chapter is called The Cemetery, and the poem that I will be reading is called um, The Ancient Graveyard. The bodies have amassed here for thousands of years. It's hardly ever quiet as screams scar the ears. The ground is just as dead as the bodies 6 feet under, but those here arise every night out of their slumber. People of all races, of all nations, of all times, innocents, victims, even those who committed crimes. The longer buried, the deadlier they prey. They've been here so long, they no longer wish to stay. More horrendous looking and very rotten. This place makes Pit Cemetery seem like a garden. Tombs and caskets here are always creaking. Visitors never leave and are last heard shrieking. Reserving a spot here isn't that hard. The dead welcome all to the ancient graveyard. If it's a poem about a cemetery, you know it's going to be creepy. The next poem I will be reading is from chapter 3, which is called The Morgue. And it is a poem called The Woodsman. The creepy old man that dwells in the woods, on a mountain or in a dark, gloomy cave. You've heard of him in countless stories. It's the outdoors and nature that he craves. But that's not all he craves. You see, he has many urges. Just the smell of brimstone and cedar sends an aroma into his nostrils that surges. He goes into this decrepit shed, to his many everyday ghastly tools, a crazy lumberjack's repertoire, as he looks at them and he foams from the mouth and drools. He picks up a sickle and rusty axe and makes his way outside, then notices a group of people, which makes his eyes grow wide. He's happy they're helpless as he charges them at full blast, his axe digging into each of their heads as they look on completely aghast. He wipes the blood off his axe in flannel shirt, now unsure what to do. He's pleased with his latest work. Don't go into the woods, or he'll come for you. Little southern horror right there for you. The next poem I will be reading is from chapter 4, which is called The Asylum. And the poem is called, let's see, it will be called too plentiful. If a vulture had his way, every day would be a feast, and there would be no worms, but 100% pure meat, perhaps pecking out an eye, here or there for amusement, but the rest of the body to be enjoyed, savored. Leaking blood is A1 sauce, a glaze for the vulture, to get that flavor just right, tearing on at the good stuff, the middle, right for the gut. One man can last One man can last a vulture at least a few hours, but today it wishes to pig out, or bird out, in a matter of speaking. It dry heaves but continues eating, the taste of the dead just right. Stay away from other vultures. Find your own juicy corpse, because when it comes to body, vultures don't share the main course. And finally, the last poem I will be reading is from chapter 5, which is called The Crematorium. The poem that I will be reading is called The Meat Locker. Viewer discretion possibly advised. Just a normal day on the job. Started off by sharpening a knife. The work conditions that of a slob. This is a typical day in the life of a butcher, a cutter of trade, doing what he does best. Every day the preparations are made as he hacks things to a bloody mess. However, things aren't as they appear. Take a closer look and see why. The anatomy butchered sends one in fear as the mouth shrieks a loud cry. The bodies on the table are the blood all over the room, are of humans who weren't able to defend themselves from doom. He placed them into the cold, on hooks already reserved. There's no secret here to be told, into the meat locker to be preserved. That was my poetry readings from the Macabre Masterpiece, Repressed Carnage, the second book in the Macabre Masterpiece series. I didn't have any live takers to watch this, but it's all good. You can watch this in the playback, I hope. And thank you for listening, and happy Halloween, everyone.